This is four founders who were all travellers and who invented it because they wanted it to exist for themselves. This is not four people going, how do we start a business that's going to make us millions, right? Or how do I just become a famous entrepreneur? These are people who said, we love to travel.
Because we're talking with a very interesting tech CEO that recently made the switch from Chief Commercial Officer at What 3 Words to Chief Executive Officer at Polarsteps. Clare Jones, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
They decided, okay, if we want to take Polarsteps to the next level, then we need a new captain, basically, right?
Yeah, they're quite an extraordinary group of guys. They wanted extra firepower that complements them.
Because you used to be working for What 3 Words, and I personally didn't know it. Is that because it's not
so big in the Netherlands? Yeah, it's pretty big in a few places. The Netherlands not yet, although hopefully it'll come. But it's still needed. I still find myself getting lost here, so still needed everywhere, but not so famous here yet.
Yeah, because essentially what you were doing is dividing the world in 57 trillion grids, 3 by 3 meter blocks, and each block has a 3 dictionary word letter that basically translates to a GPS coordinate, right?
Yes.
And since I learned this about a week ago, I actually already noticed quite a lot of moments where I could use it. So.
Yeah, and as a traveller, anyone who travels knows this, because every country in the world has different addressing systems, and often the places you want to go are the places without addresses, because addresses came from mail delivery. So if you're not delivering mail there, it doesn't have an address. So you're trying to explain to someone, where's this incredible spot on a mountain? You don't have an address for it. And most people are not comfortable enough to say, here's a 16-digit GPS coordinate that you must type into your phone. So it's useful. Once you realise that there's a solution, you notice the problem everywhere.
Yeah, nice. And then in June last year, you made the switch to Polarsteps. Before we go into there, because I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it, can you maybe take us back to when you started being an entrepreneur? Because I know you studied at Cambridge University. Were you already entrepreneurial then, or was it after that or before that already?
So I think, well, I was always busy. So I didn't start things before university or anything, but I was always just didn't want to be bored. So I always had 1,000 different jobs and was always working and studying and just really, really, really busy. And then post-university, so post-Cambridge, I thought I was going to work in NGOs. So I wanted to go and save the world. And so I worked in a few different NGOs in different roles, but it became clear to me quite quickly I actually wasn't best suited to frontline work. Mm-hmm. I would work with a lot of, for example, I was working on a project where women had been trafficked and they were very vulnerable, and I just wasn't actually, I think, resilient enough to do that kind of work. And I would see my colleagues who were incredible at it. They were hugely empathetic and hugely kind, but also very strong and serious and knew exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And I actually found that I think at that point, just not emotionally resilient enough to do that kind of work well. I think, I would see other people do it well and I would feel that I wasn't doing a good enough job.
So you would share the sympathy, but still feel connected, but then not...
Yes, but we would find it very tough to then act on it. And so, I have huge admiration for people who are in frontline support work, because having seen people who are good at it and know how much that must take to be so good at it. So after that, I thought, so I was kind of thinking about NGO world, and then ended up meeting someone who, and we set up a kind of social enterprise, started as an NGO, social enterprise type thing, to get young people who'd left school without qualifications into education and then jobs. Mm-hmm. And that was my first experience of, I remember doing the docs in the house I was renting staying a room in, and signing the kind of docs to make the company exist. This kind of amazing thing of imagining something into being together with the person I started it with. And that was, I think, the first taste then of what it's like to start something.
What was that called?
It was called Second Chance. And it was... I was also very young and had no idea what I was doing. And so...
That's how you learn, I guess.
That's how you learn. And it's a huge learning trajectory. But I was also very lucky because I was around a lot of people who did know what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to really learn from them. And also the first few people I hired, so one of whom I hired this woman, one of our first hires, or maybe our first hire, she was called Jo, and she was very experienced and an absolute rock star. And she also taught me a lot, because she would be like, that's not how you do things. So I would just be trying even how to be a manager. I had no idea how to be a manager because I hadn't really managed anyone. And I hadn't really been managed because I was really young. And she would be like, no, she would constantly give me feedback and help fix me and make me much better at everything I did.
Was she older then?
Yes.
Much
and
more experienced. Yeah.
Yes. And then actually in the end, she ended up coming with me and working with the next thing later as well. But that was a really important bit of it for me, was that having had this extraordinary chance to grow something from nothing, you also need to be around people who do know what they're doing, so that you can get guidance and steering, because there's this huge, I think, arrogance of youth, that you think you know what you're doing, and actually you often don't know what you're doing, and the naivety is good and it pushes you forward and gives you energy and belief, but you also need people around you to be like, that's not how you should do things.
But from my homework, I learned that taking feedback was maybe your strongest point.
Yeah, I think it took me a long time to really see that feedback was a gift, really, that it's helpful, because it can feel, I think, I always wanted to do my best, and I always tried to do my best, and when you do that, I think when someone points out something you could have done better, it can hurt, because you're like, but I was trying so hard and I wanted to get it right, and you really overthink. I'm desperate and I'd read every book and I'd try and follow all of the advice. And
why would you need feedback?
Well, or more just like, I was so disappointed every time I hear it. I'd be like, well, I've been trying so hard, and why am I getting this wrong? And so I think I would be defensive, because I would feel upset that I hadn't got it right. And then a real kind of shift was when I was able to be like, I don't have to feel defensive here, because this person is being so kind. Giving me feedback is such a kind thing to do, because it gives me space to grow. And also to learn that a big thing I learned is, when you feel defensive, ask a question. Because when someone first says something to you and you feel defensive, it's really easy to just want to defend it and be like, well, no, it's wrong, you're wrong because of this, or I didn't actually mean that, no, you've misunderstood, that's not what I was trying to do or say. And then you haven't really given yourself space to absorb it. Whereas I find if I feel defensive, and they go, ask another question. And you can keep doing that until you don't feel defensive anymore. And that's either because you've understood more about what they were saying and you've actually listened, or you've understood they might be right, or you've just given yourself space to calm down. And it's not just with feedback, it's with anything, where I just think if you're in a conversation where you disagree about strategy, something, if you feel defensive, ask a question.
But they also might be wrong. If you ask enough questions, because maybe if you do read a lot of books and you do start to gain some experience, then eventually you also know what you're doing, I guess.
But feedback, even if you don't agree with the feedback directly,
it's still not wrong too.
It's still data, right? So if someone says, it really feels like you don't care about something in the organisation, for example, the feedback might not be right in that I do care about it, but it's data which is showing me that for some reason people feel like I don't.
Yeah.
Right? That's still data. So it's still something I can use, and it's something I can work on, because even if the outcome the thing they've concluded might not be correct, or it might not feel true, the reason they got there exists, and that's the thing you should look at. Yeah,
exactly. And you use that. I think if you were still young and having to manage people, you're already positioned in quite an entrepreneurial spot, probably, right, as a business owner at that time. Then how did you go from there to What 3 Words? Because I think that's you worked there 8 years or something?
Yeah, nearly a decade. I think it was a long time. Yeah. Probably 8.5 years, something like that in total. Yeah, I think you're spot on. And it certainly felt like a long time. But it was really, so just before What 3 Words, I was working at a very small impact investment bank. So it was a place that was working a lot with social entrepreneurs, and basically working with individuals who had capital but wanted it to do good in the world. And that was environmental or social good, and entrepreneurs who were building businesses that were environmentally or socially good. At that point, that was because I'd kind of got the startup bug, and I knew this was the world I wanted to be in. But at that point, I didn't have a new idea for a thing. I didn't necessarily know exactly what I was going to end up doing. And so this felt like a really nice point to go to, which was be in that world and meet entrepreneurs and investors. And
maybe good ideas and everything.
And
were
also
you still
with
studying
passion.
Also?
No.
At the time?
No.
So you finished
studying.
Your master, and then...
Yeah. So then I was clearly. So we had a kind of which was the investment bank. We had a portfolio of amazing companies that we'd worked with, and startups and scale-ups. And one of those was in a pitch competition, and so was Chris, who's the founder of What 3 Words. And it was one of those ideas that once I saw it, I just thought it was just blown away by the elegance and the beauty of it. It's just a really beautiful idea, and it has a huge social impact. If you think about when you need to call an ambulance, saving 2 minutes by explaining exactly where you are, or if you think about being in a township that doesn't have addresses and needing to get a midwife to come. any that's kind of life-changing. It's used in refugee camps, all sorts of things. So there was this amazing thing where this is a really beautiful idea, it's wonderful technology, plus it's really good for the world.
Yeah.
And luckily, at that point, it was very early, and it wasn't a very big team, and I reached out to the guys, and we ended up there for 8-9 years.
How long was it already running when you joined?
A few years. So it'd been there a few years, and they were just in the sort of, at least when I joined, people in my circles hadn't heard of it. So it was a lot of people were like, what are you doing? I've never even heard of this thing. Why are you leaving your job for this? But for me, it was so clear that it was going to succeed, because it was an extraordinary group of people. It was an extraordinary idea, and the problem is huge. And so it felt to me like I should take a jump. And it was one of my best decisions ever.
Yeah, for sure, of course. Did they already have the technology when you joined?
Yeah, so the technology was there. So my job was really to think about business development, so how we would scale through businesses, because in order for What 3 Words to work, it's needed consumers to use it, but it also needs businesses to use it. So, for example, if you're ordering a pizza to get to your door and you want to say exactly where the door is, because sometimes the address is not clear enough, you need the consumer to use it, but you also need the delivery company to use it.
Yeah.
So the delivery companies say, can you give us your What 3 Words address? And so a lot of my job was thinking about how we can get businesses to adopt the technology, but also how you get businesses to tell their consumers about the technology.
Yeah, essentially you want them to tell as many consumers as possible, please send the What 3 Words address.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also you need businesses and users, but you also needed someone to pay for it, right?
Yeah, so
That's
so we had a licensing model, so the businesses would pay, so consumers could use it for free.
Yeah, because that's maybe a similarity with Polarsteps, that you're working with technology that people are able to use for free, and not even in a reduced way, but just full functionality for free.
Yeah, I think that's if you can find a business model where your users get to have so much value, but don't have to be served ads, or you're not selling their data. Like, this is a really important thing, is can we create amazing apps and software for consumers where we're not exploiting those consumers through ads or through data selling or something like that. And Polarsteps is a great example where this incredible thing is free for users to use, but it's also a very successful and profitable company.
Yeah, exactly. And then with What 3 Words, there are statistics out there that in your time there you raised millions of pounds. I think I've seen different statistics. Some say 16 or 20, or do you have any idea how much it was?
Well, it was. I mean, we had a few funding rounds at What 3 Words. So over the years, the company fundraised a lot. But it was one of my favorite things actually was fundraising, because you would meet people who had big visions and were happy to think about what the world could look like in 10 years, and didn't just think in normal ways. And so I actually loved, those conversations with investors, because I was so proud of what we had and the team we had and what we were doing. And it was really wonderful to then meet investors who also got excited about it. And we had a great time with strategic investors, particularly. So those were companies like IKEA or Mercedes, where they might want to use it from a business perspective, but also bought shares in the company itself as a kind of a mark of their support for it, and a desire to help it succeed, and of course to benefit from it if it does. So that was a really fun thing. And it wasn't always easy, because when you're doing fundraising and business development and running a big team, and the company's growing, and you're having to learn things, it was also an exhausting thing at many points, in fact probably all points, but it was a real fun adventure.
So no 40-hour work weeks.
No, it was a lot of 18-hour days. But when you're young, you have a lot of energy, and I was learning so much.
Like a sponge.
All the time. And that is such a joy for me, to be able to learn constantly and not be bored. Yeah. I'm willing to work very hard and do a lot to have that experience.
The not be bored is also a recurring topic in your previous interviews. You just say, I get bored so easily. So if there are ways for me to not be bored, that means you're in the right spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been, ever since I was a kid, seeking out things so that I couldn't be bored. And startup life is that. You will be exhausted and exhilarated and devastated and all sorts of things, but never bored.
But Polarsteps is not necessarily startup life, right?
Yeah.
It's skilled life.
Yeah,
but
Polarsteps
more about that later. In those 18-hour days, could you still sleep? Are you a good sleeper?
I'm not a good sleeper. I've never really been a good sleeper, at least that I can remember. I think as a kid, I used to stay up late reading under the covers with a torch. And I think I trained myself into not sleeping very much. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to sleep when there's a lot to do and a lot to think about. And you always, this is the thing I've been training myself out of, because you can always work more. You can always think, oh, I'll just get up or I'll stay late and I'll do this thing. And
you can, but
yes, it's not very healthy. So I'm trying to learn how to sleep better. But yeah, I think some people sleep less than other people.
Fair enough. In your experience, if you get more rest, do you get more done, like efficiency-wise? Because I would assume if you're in a strategic role, then doing more is not always the answer, but it's doing better or different.
Yeah, I think part of it is not being so busy or full on that you don't have time to think. So I think waking time that it seems like rest is also important. Mm-hmm. So I struggle to sleep, but what I have learned that makes a huge difference for me is space to think, where I'm not actively doing something else. So I'm really, for example, I walk a lot. I love to walk. The team was saying, I'm always saying, can we do that walking one-to-one instead of sitting? And I pace it around all the time. I'm often at airports or train stations pacing up and down with 10 minutes to go. And I've trained myself recently to not listen to something. So I used to listen to things, podcasts or audiobooks or whatever, usually on times 3 if it'll let you, times 2 if not, speed. And that's great and very stimulating for me, but it never gave me time to think. And so what I'm now trying to do is when I'm doing a long walk, I don't listen to anything. And it's really hard for me, and I really feel like I want to listen to something and I want to be stimulated, but I find that by the end of the 45-minute walk, I've thought about 10 different work problems or things we need to think about or something I'd forgotten, and it's a really valuable thing that makes me way more efficient. So that's been I haven't yet managed to sleep that much, but I have learned the value of space without something going on to try and force yourself to problem solve more efficiently.
Yeah, because I think many people do that sleeping, but if you do that during walk, that's fine. It's what I meant. And now you're forcing yourself to be bored.
Yes, so that you have to think about, you can still not be bored if you're thinking about an interesting problem, but it's forcing yourself to have space for problems to percolate.
My supervisor for my thesis also, he would do it at night, and he would just love it, not being able to sleep. Yeah. But that was from a very healthy, positive, interested perspective. You know, he would just it's like, well, if I can get my mind to work on stuff that I enjoy working on, then that was his relaxing basically for him. Yeah. That's nice. Then we're going to slowly move towards Polarsteps. During the introduction, I tried to do all the statistics by heart. Your team sent over quite some stunning statistics that I didn't know by heart, but that's okay. So. Founded 10 years ago on March 23rd, 2015, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And it was tracking trips by sending lat-long coordinates to a server in the Netherlands to reconstruct basically the route, which is essentially what Polarsteps is still doing. It also means that you're going into your 10-year anniversary. And then when you joined in June 2024, around the same time, you guys also announced that you hit the 10 million registered users, from which you say 99% is organic. So it's not like you're paying to acquire these new users. Then in 2024, you achieved a revenue of over 10 million. And right now you're profitable and sustainable with the last funding round in 2019. So Polarsteps in the past did raise funding. Also, at the start, like how many series, do you know?
So that was the Series A in 2019. So there was some seed funding, and then there was a Series A led by Incef, a Dutch fund. But luckily, it's been very successful since and hasn't needed to bring in funding. Yeah,
and then right now you're at 13 million travelers with the goal of reaching 100 million travelers. And what I respect very much is that the original founding team is still working here. And they decided, okay, if we want to take Polarsteps to the next level, then we need a new captain, basically, right?
Yeah, they're quite an extraordinary group of guys. This is four founders who are all travellers and who invented it because they wanted it to exist for themselves. And I think that's quite a special thing. This is not 4 people going, how do we start a business that's going to make us millions, right? Or how do I just become a famous entrepreneur? These are people who said, we love to travel. And we love to travel in interesting ways that are good for the world. How would a product look if we wanted to use it? And so what that meant is you've got 4 people who are deeply invested in creating a beautiful product for users. And that is so much of what's been successful about Polarsteps. But it also meant that, so they've had an amazing journey, but the last couple of years, the user stats really started to take off. Yeah. So, it took quite a while to get to 5 million users. Didn't take long to get to 10 million. It's not taking long now to get even higher. And that moment when everything is upticking, you have a chance to basically go, is this the team we want to go with the next phase? Or if we're going for big, which we are, we're talking about getting to 100 million monthly active users.
That's monthly active,
that's
not
where
even
we're going.
legacy users registered, just active.
100 million monthly active users is where we're going. And that puts us in the top travel apps in the world, in the group of Booking and Expedia and Airbnb, the ones you know. No one's ever done anything like this, right? No one's built an app like this in travel. So if we're going to do that, what does that look like? And I think we're very lucky at Polarsteps that the founders are all exceptionally talented people who were very, very good at running the business. And it was in unbelievable shape when I joined. Really recommend choosing a business in such good shape. And they wanted extra firepower that complements them. So that they are so brilliant on product, all of them, product design, tech, their product strategy. They're so brilliant on that. But they wanted to bring in someone with experience of scaling things, with experience of getting into different markets, because the Netherlands was pretty much done when I joined. The fact that a third of people in the Netherlands are Polarsteps users was nothing to do with me. That was before. Yeah. And so it was already very successful here, but it was starting to pick up elsewhere. And so then they just thought, let's bring someone else in to complement us and to work on the journey. And it's a very unusual thing to get to take something over at this stage as CEO and keep the founders, because founders are so special. Founders have product vision and product insight and desire to work that's really very difficult to find in a non-founder. And to be in a position where there are 3 founders still in the business who are working every day to make this successful and to bring in extra firepower from someone new. Yeah. That's a really quite an unusual thing and a very special one.
Their pride is not preventing them from stepping aside and making sure that the transition was smooth. I even heard that you had dinner with their families and everything to like onboard you as good as possible.
But Max was the most recent CEO and is now CTO. And he is a very impressive collection of skills and attributes as a person. He's incredible on tech, he's incredible on product and strategy, and he was a wonderful CEO. But he's also very warm and empathetic and very human, and that is true of everybody at Polarsteps. And he and Sasha, who's our incredible head of people, worked really hard to make sure that when I came in, I was being embraced as a person. Yeah. Because it's such a warm environment here, and people are so close as colleagues, and it's a really exceptional environment, and they really worked to make sure that I felt loved and welcomed.
Because you had to move countries as well, right? So it's not nothing where you had to come from London, right, to Amsterdam.
But for everyone who knew me, no one could believe I was leaving What 3 Words, because I love What 3 Words. I am.
Yeah, you were the founder, one of them.
I love it. I was there from so early. It was one of my whole identity. A lot of it was about how much I love What 3 Words, and I still love What 3 Words. But there was just something very special about this group of people and this moment for Polarsteps. What I had in my head about it was, imagine if I don't say yes to this, because I think this is going to succeed. With or without me, I think it's going to succeed. So I would like to be part of it, because I will be very sad if in 10 years I look back and I get to see how successful Polarsteps has been, and I think, I had the chance to be part of that, because I love the scale-up phase. It was really fun doing it at What 3 Words. It's really fun getting to do it again here. And so, it was a big change, and in moving countries, and no one can believe that, because I love London. I still spend quite a lot of time in London, because there is a lovely train that goes between London and Amsterdam very easily. But it was a huge change, but it felt right every single day. I've not felt a single day since I joined that it was anything other than a fantastic decision.
And we're in the absolute middle of Dutch winters. Well, London winters are probably equally
I'm used to the rain
grey.
and the cold.
Yeah, exactly. So, can you maybe take us with you on how it is to board basically a company that is doing so well? Because eventually, as a CEO, I would assume that you're going to make decisions here, but I would feel very much not that you don't want to do it at the start, right? So how is that going?
So I think a big thing for me was at the beginning, my job is to just understand as much as possible from everybody who's already here. And that meant a really structured onboarding program, which the team designed for me. So I just got to enjoy it, nice. Which was wonderful. And that meant sitting with every different team. So I had days with each different team, getting to know the people, understanding their work. Everyone was very generous with their time. And I just asked loads of questions, and I filled up about 4 notebooks in my first 2 months. Just notes, just talk to me. And for me, it felt like, especially because Polarsteps, everyone who's been here has been here building this company for a long time. It's nearly a decade old. And they really know this space. I came from Mapping World. I know maps and addresses, but I didn't know travel in the same way. So I felt like a lot of my job was just listen and understand and ask loads of questions. And I asked loads and loads of questions, and everyone was really kind with answering many, many, many questions. But then we also had quite a structured process for the point at which I would start to make decisions. Mm-hmm. So Max, because Max was still there, right? So Max was the CEO, and then he knew he was going to be the CTO once I was settled in. But we had a long period where he was still making a lot of the decisions in the beginning, the first few weeks, because he has all the data. And then we had a period where I would check with Max on any decision, and he would guide me, and we'd talk about how to make it. And then the point at which he felt good and I felt good, and the other founders and the rest of the management team and the company felt confident, we kind of had a more official handing over.
And when was that? How long is this process?
Probably like 3 months of onboarding, I would say.
Okay, yeah.
And then, I mean, even now, I still have 9 years behind data that everyone else has. So, but that's also, I think, an important thing, because a CEO isn't a CEO because they know the answers. Mm-hmm. That's not your job. It's not to know the answers. Your job is to ask questions and get people in the room and help prioritize and help steer. But your job is not to know everything. And therefore, a lot of what I'm doing still now is really consultative and understand. And sometimes you do have to make a decision. Sometimes you've got 4 different opinions about it's usually product roadmap. We're trying to work it out. And sometimes you've just got to go, we're going to take a bet on this strategic decision in this timing. But because it's a very collaborative culture here, and we've all fought it together. We've sat there, and it's either in person or it's on a long document, and we've all put our comments and opinions. By the time you get there, we feel like, look, hopefully it's the most right decision now. And the good thing is, so many decisions are not final, right? There are very few decisions. It's the one-way, two-way door thing, right? If it's a two-way door, make the decision. Now, some of them are more impactful than others, but sometimes you just have to pick. And often, both answers are good, right? Especially on a product thing where both features that you're deciding between might be good. Yeah. You've just got to get enough information to just maybe think this one just about gets there.
So you're making the decisions on data, based on data, of course, as much as possible. But then what kind of decisions are, for example, easy or tough? I have no clue on what
so
type of decisions.
So an example would be, this one was tough. So we make it based on data and also instinct, and including the founder's instinct, because they've been here a long time building this. And I think instinct's a funny one, because in the end, it's really based on data too. It's just data you can't access in that moment. Mm-hmm. So gut feel and instinct is also important. So an example of this would be, so right now, the app is totally free. So there is no subscription tier in the app. Now, subscription is a really wonderful way to build a software product, because you can have certain premium features that certain numbers of users, maybe only 10% of users or 5% of users want, and they're willing to pay for it because they really want it, and you can use that to fund the rest of the app. Now, that is a really sensible way to make money. It's also really high margin. It's also what a lot of consumer apps do. If you think about Duolingo, it's exactly what Duolingo does. And it can be very successful. It can make you lots of money. It's also complex and hard to do. So our question every month really is, when should we do subscription? And we had a conversation about this towards the end of last year, to be like, are we going to do this in Q1, or are we going to do it in 2025 at all? And there are so many good reasons to do it, but also reasons to focus on other things. Because when you're thinking about what I should do, you're also thinking about the things you won't do.
Yeah.
And right now we are seeing a huge trend of people using Polarsteps to plan their trips. So in the old days, a lot of you, probably in the Netherlands where everyone does Polarsteps, you were probably using it to track your trips.
Yeah.
We're having huge growth in terms of percentage growth, massively, in people using it to plan their trips right now. And I think that's a really important thing that we need to lean into. We've got to look at this, and we've got to say, okay, right now, more and more people are wanting to plan with Polarsteps, so we should create better planning features. We should make sure, and now it's always been the intention. The founders from day one knew they were building an app for travelers, and that would be with you before you even start your journey. So it's with you when you're on your lunch break, with your phone going, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go to Japan? We should be the thing you open. You think, where would I like to go? Would I like to go to Japan? Would I like to go to Peru? Where would I like to go when I'm there? With you when you're planning your journey, with you when you're on your journey and you're sharing it with friends and family, and then with you when you're reliving your journey for the rest of your life. That's always been the vision. That has not changed. Polarsteps has always had that vision in mind. But this year, because everything has gone crazy in a good way with consumers, we had to look at our planning solution and think, well, there are a bunch of things we could do in there that our consumers will really love. And some of that's the tooling that we've been launching. Some of it's also, we're doing this amazing launch very soon of an AI itinerary planner. So It's very trendy at the moment in travel tech to have an AI travel planner.
Of course, you need AI and large language models and everything.
Yes, yeah. But a lot of what travel startups and some big corporates are doing is just taking an LLM, so ChatGPT or Claude or DeepSeek, and putting a wrapper around it, and maybe doing some nice UX, not always nice UX, but some nice UX, and giving it to people. And so that might involve 27 onboarding questions to find who are you, what kind of travel do you like to do? So you've got to answer a massive quiz, and then they'll create an itinerary for you, or just guessing and just being like, here are 5 demographic pieces of information, here's a trip you might like, or just giving generic trips. So a lot of companies are doing that. What we're doing is different to that, because the lovely thing about large language models is they're very good at massive data sets of text. And so what we have, because we've had millions of travellers travelling for nearly a decade, we have amazing amounts of text about what kind of trips people do, where they go, what they like to do. Now, what we're launching first is we're basically taking people, now it's an opt-in, so don't be scared. If you don't want to use AI, you can absolutely not do it. But if you'd like to opt in, you can basically say, look at my last 5 years of trips, for example, or every trip I've ever taken. And from that, because an LLM can understand, can ingest all of that information, all of those lovely essays everyone's written about their travels when they've been using Polarsteps.
I spend a lot of time on those.
Of course you do. And the key thing here is, Polarsteps is not used to show off your trips to everyone in the world. People use Polarsteps to track their trips for themselves, number one. I'm writing my Polarsteps updates for Claire in 10 years because I want to remember that moment that I met that old man outside the cenote in Mexico and we had this wonderful conversation and the kitten appeared. Like, I'm not going to remember that necessarily in 10, 20 years, but if it's in Polarsteps, I will have a way to access that memory. So people are writing very real explanations of their trips. And so it involves all the detail, but it also involves all the stuff that went wrong and the stuff they didn't like. And I have an example of this where on Instagram, I have a beautiful picture of a volcano I climbed outside just near Bali. And gorgeous picture, gorgeous sunset, climbed it up in the dark, the sun rose, beautiful view. In my Polarsteps version of that trip, it says it was really disappointing because we thought we were going with a local guide and we thought it was going to be like this really quite beautiful sacred experience of going and climbing in the middle of the night and feeling incredible. And of course it was covered in other tourists.
Yeah.
But the picture on Instagram was just a beautiful picture of the sunset from the volcano with the cauldron. And the Polarsteps was where the reality was written. And so if you think about people's travels and you think about making an AI itinerary planner, so in our case, what we're building is it's going to take your past trips and without asking you any questions, you don't need to say, I'm this kind of traveller. We know what kind of traveller you are because you've told us. We can then plan a trip that is so specific to you. And it is amazing because it feels like magic. And it's so strange because I know how it works, right? I know, I can see what we do. Magic, and yet when I say, design me a trip for 2 weeks in South Africa, for example, it understands me so well as a traveller. It understands what I care about. It knows that I care about local things and sustainable travel and vegan food. Or it might know if I'm asking for something different, it might know that, for example, I join a trip with my sister and my nieces every year, and it's able to understand that I travel with my family, and that might be a different type of travel. And the things that it can do, because we have so much information that we've provided, we ourselves have said, this is the kind of traveller I am, but that creates something extraordinary, and it's something no one else can do because no one else has been doing this for 10 years. Yeah. No one else for 10 years has been saying to people, give us your heart's feelings about your trip, tell us exactly how you felt, tell us what went wrong, tell us the things that you hated. So my trips now, when I get designed trips through this AI itinerary planner, because we're able to play with it because it's not public yet, but I'm able to play with it. I'm able to see this and go, that is who I am. And it says, we know you didn't like the crowds there, or we know you like somewhere that's more off the beaten track, but you want it to be safe. I'm not so adventurous, I want to be somewhere totally off the beaten. But it's amazing, and it's able to do that. And that's something that nothing else on the market can do, because no one else has this very specific, very authentic data on how people actually travel.
Such a contrast, for example, between Instagram and Polarsteps. And it's also impossible in other ways to ask people to describe what they like, what they didn't like, this detailed.
Yeah.
And it's elegant in a way that for the user, it's not necessary to provide more information, right? Because that's always how current AI implementations usually go. It starts asking questions, or you have to provide more detail. But you have it already.
Yeah, and the lovely thing is, it then goes into our planning tool, and we know that people like to also plan their trips. Like, there is joy in planning your trip.
Of course. Half the
now,
joy.
Yes, exactly. There's also pain, like right now having to be on a Google sheet with your booking links and 19 tabs, and I've got Atlas Obscura there to tell me where to go, and I've got a TripAdvisor link over there.
Try a WhatsApp group with 5 friends.
And WhatsApp. But that's what we're solving. So we're basically saying, we know there's joy in planning. We would like to let you plan, but we'd like to take away the pain. And so that's why focusing on the planning and the inspiration and the AI itineraries, then the planning tooling has been a really important part of what we're doing right now, because it lets us go, let's create a beautiful experience for our users when they're planning. And they will still, if we create an itinerary, it's not then set in stone. So we're going to say, you wanted to do 2 weeks in Peru. We know all these things about you. And the lovely thing is it also can reference your friends and family, because it will say, look, you follow Lisa on Polarsteps, and 3 years ago she went here and her tip was this. So you can also reference that. You can then change it. You can then go, great, actually, I don't want to go there, and I'm going to add this other thing that I've read on that other blog I wanted to try, or something I've seen on TikTok. But once you've got it in there, you can then edit it. You can then, of course, once you're on the trip, turn that into a track trip. And it's this lovely flow, which is from day 1 of thinking about traveling to day 100 to day 10,000 when I'm reflecting on my trip.
Yeah.
You're revisiting. You're with Polarsteps the whole
So
way.
that's what was going to be your focus, and then you see that planning is growing, so then 100 million users. Does that also mean that right now you've decided to not do the freemium model? Where
Yeah, so as of today, we're not doing it. We will do it at some point. We will, and of course, that means you have to think carefully when you're building. So we are already thinking, oh, that's a feature we might save for premium because it's niche, right?
So it's already also building it into the product?
Of course. So building it into the way you think about design and way you think about things. So you think, okay, yes, this is something we might want to put in premium for the future. But what we're doing now is focusing really hard on growth and user experience. And that means we're going for amazing inspiration and planning. We're also doing something amazing on video for reliving your journey with video. That's coming. And so that's our real focus, is get that whole funnel really beautifully working. Make sure that our users are having an incredible experience. Now, the lucky thing with Polarsteps is, for a lot of companies making that decision, they would be going, but we're going to run out of money if we don't do premium. A lot of companies would be sitting there going, we know the right thing for our users is to focus on this, but we have to do premium, because otherwise we've either got to do premium or we've got to fundraise. Those are our options.
And then you get investors.
And then it might change. The company might give away, or you might not be able to fundraise, and it's a real problem. Now, luckily, or not luck, but because of all the hard work of the team, luckily, Polarsteps is not having to do that. We're able to look at it purely from a user perspective and a growth perspective, because we are making a lot of money through travel books. And so basically the way it works is when you track your trip on Polarsteps, people track their trips for themselves and for their loved ones. And then at the end of that, you've already done all the work of writing about your trip, curating your photos, and only having the best photos, or the most interesting, often not the most beautiful, but the most interesting photos on there.
That's what Instagram is for.
Yes, so Instagram can have the beautiful ones, we'll have the interesting ones. And at the end of that, you then have a trip in your Polarsteps account that is already very structured. So what we do is we say, hello, would you like to order this as a photo book? Because everyone's followed the same structure, right? The way we've structured Polarsteps is very structured.
It's like a timeline, right?
It's a timeline, and you've got text and photos, and we're therefore able to pretty much automatically create people's travel books of their trips. And that allows them to then go, yes, please. Now, lots of users say no, thank you. Lots of users don't order a travel book. Maybe they don't want one. Maybe they can't afford one. All kinds of reasons. But that doesn't matter, because enough users do that it basically funds the entire rest of the app. Now, we have a few other revenue streams and others coming on now, and one other that's already started. But that is the bulk of it. And the beauty of that is that it's not the long-term business model. We're not going to be a print company. But the beauty of it is it allows us to focus on a beautiful user experience and fantastic growth without having to go, let's do premium before we're ready, because we need to make some money, because that's not a problem we have.
Yeah, and of course, the growth, it will, if you go for a premium model, it will limit the growth, because Netherlands is done. One in three, 2 in 3, what did you say?
1 in 3. I think if you look at just, I'd have to check the maths on it, but at the moment, 28% of people in the Netherlands are, of all people, are registered Polarsteps users. If we looked then at just adults, it might be closer to 40%.
Yeah, and then in the list of statistics, I learned that France is now your fastest growing market.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, France and Paris actually overtook Amsterdam for monthly active users recently, which is exciting. Yeah.
So, with what 3 words, you also focused on international markets, right? So is that also one of the reasons why you're now here, basically?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the fact that I'd experienced this kind of colossal consumer growth at What 3 Words in lots of different countries. At What 3 Words, it was amazing. I mean, seeing it all over different countries and seeing it take over and do marketing in those places. So, so part of it, I think, was that I've seen it. I mean, it's still different. You're still going to learn different things. We have an extraordinary head of growth, Lawrence, who has managed to work very well in the last few months. So basically, you mentioned the 99% organic thing. Yeah. And it's one of those things where people feel like it's really special to be able to say that, because most consumer companies don't have that level
this
of
is
viral
word
growth.
of mouth, and if your word of mouth is high, then...
And so that's wonderful, because it's free. And it also shows that the product is wonderful. So the way that works is that say you start a trip on Polarsteps and it's your first time using Polarsteps, then you send it to 5 people and you say, follow my trip on Polarsteps. Key thing being, you only send it to 5. You don't send it to 1,000 people because that is not a strong call to action. If you send it to the 5 people you love most in the world, they kind of have to follow you, right?
Yeah.
Your parents can't be like, no thanks, or your best friend can't be like, and especially because these are the people that were going to WhatsApp you saying, where are you today? What are you up to? How's the trip going?
Exactly. You can't say, okay, I'm going to solo travel through this sketchy place in the world and then not follow me, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens? Very strong call to action. So say you send it to 5 people. Some of them, or all of them, sometimes download the app. At some point, one of them does a trip. They invite 5 people. Now, the growth if you look at the sign-up growth in the Netherlands, it's slowed down a lot recently because we ran out of people. So imagine you invite 5 people. At some point, those 5 people are already on Polarsteps. So you're not inviting them.
They'll
anyway,
get invitations to follow other people's trips, but they already have the app.
Yes, and they're already following you, so you don't need to invite them. So that has been lovely and wonderful organic growth, and a bit of secret sauce that a lot of consumer apps would love, which is that level of organic growth. However, you don't have to just sit and wait. And if you sit and wait, so France has already taken off. Germany is now taking off in a big way. Switzerland, the UK, the US, they're starting to. However, if you just sit and wait for organic, it is wonderful and it works, but you can also speed it up by not sitting and waiting.
I was about to say, maybe you should focus, you know this obviously, but what if you focus on markets that are about to take off, right? Because as soon as you have some momentum in a country, then they will start sharing it regardless.
Yes, exactly. So the question then is, can you speed up that tipping point moment where everyone uses it? So in the Netherlands now, it's very rare for me to meet someone who doesn't know Polarsteps. In France, that's starting. It doesn't feel the same yet because France is actually bigger population-wise. So even though you have a lot of users, they're more spread out. But yes, our question of the last 3 months has been, can we speed up France? So we know if we just sit here, we know what will happen. We've seen this in the Netherlands. We know, but we don't want to just sit here. We want to see, can we speed it up? And if we can, we're going to do that in all the other markets. Yeah. So what we've been doing is running a combination of ads. We're doing a bit of brand marketing with influencers and adventurers. And the lovely thing is it's been incredibly effective. But that's not because we're targeting downloads of the app. That's not our KPI. So when we're running ads, so lots of companies run ads. So for example, on Meta, people might see them on their Instagram, right? You're used to ads, or on TikTok. And we are not saying we just want downloads. We're not optimizing for cheapest downloads because that might sound good and it might inflate your stats. You could get very cheap users. The thing we're doing is we're targeting users who, actually our KPI is way further down the funnel. So we're saying we're targeting users who create a trip. So this is not someone who's just interested in the idea and downloads the app, not someone who just wants to follow their friends. We're targeting users who want to use us to plan a trip or track a trip.
Because they're going to tell people.
And also, they're the ones that have the pain point.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are going to fall in love with this product, because every traveller who has been on a multi-destination trip, every traveller who has not just got on a plane and gone to a resort and come back, has felt this pain. They've felt the pain of wanting to update people or wanting to plan it or wanting to know what to do.
For every moment on their trip.
Exactly.
And so, just once a
exactly,
day or,
exactly. So those are the people that we're finding. And the lovely thing has been watching that as Lawrence and his team have been optimizing, the cost per trip has dropped and dropped and dropped. It's unbelievable now. I'm not entirely what it is, but it's very good. And that is very exciting, because that makes me go, oh, we're going France has already hit a bit of a tipping point. Let's just keep going for a couple more months and make sure it hits it. It will continues it, and then let's go. Let's go to the other markets. Let's do this in Germany. Let's do this in the UK. Let's do this in the US.
Can Meta track people who create a trip? Right, because you are targeting.
So we know. So Meta themselves are not getting our personal user data.
No, of course
data,
not.
But we are able to see. We're able to attribute from an ad. So if somebody came in through an ad, we're then able to track them. We kind of tag them as a paid user, not on an individual level, but anonymously in aggregate data.
Conversion.
You're able to understand. And the lovely thing is seeing that paid users share just like organic users. I think the difference is, I'd have to check the stats, but it's something like from one of our cohorts, the average organic user was sharing 4.8 times and the average paid was sharing 4.2.
Yeah, these are the pizzerias of What 3 Words, right? Because the pizzerias are telling their customers, please send a What 3 Words address. Yeah.
Well, we're all used to the COVID analysis. It's viral. Things go viral because you have nodes
they're
and
a super spreader.
Things.
What words did they have?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about the competition, because I know it's already been talked about probably, and I think most people ask about this. But if we're talking about tipping points and speeding up tipping points, then you're also trying to get there before competitors probably.
Yes. So the interesting thing for me with Polarsteps is it's such a big problem. And we know, all of us who are travellers know this should exist. So someone is going to solve this globally at some point. But because of the product that this needs to be, there's only really space for one. This is a winner takes all.
Yeah,
someone is going to buy
sharing,
it.
of course.
Because of the sharing, because of it's a community thing. Like this works if there is the place that you go. It's not one of many places. Polarsteps works. Well, whoever's going to solve this problem,
Polarsteps.
it needs to be one place, and it needs to kind of win. And so it's a big bet. And the interesting thing with Polarsteps is no one else in the market right now is even close.
Mm-hmm.
So Polarsteps is the market leader on tracking and reliving your trips. That's been the thing it always did. It's now rapidly getting huge adoption in planning. And we'll see even more with the itineraries shortly. No one is close to doing all of those things. But now there are a couple of things. There are people who do bits of those things, right?
Very well.
Very well. Very, very well.
Yeah.
So one of the best places right now for inspiration for travel is TikTok with videos. People scroll and they go, that looks amazing. They go, I'm going to the Isle of Skye, and they look up TikTok videos on the Isle of Skye and they go, that's the one, that looks good for me. And maybe they then plan their trip. Now, there is a problem there because once I've scrolled through that TikTok feed and found the video, I then have a video, not a plan. So there is a gap, of course, which is that they then have to hop into a different platform, which is probably Google Sheets. Mm-hmm. And that's a good example where right now our planning competitor is Google Sheets or Excel or the Notes app or a WhatsApp group. So
the Notes app is a competitor.
That's a competitor right now.
Probably,
So there are planning apps out there, but none of them have got to large scale adoption. And so I would say actually in reality our competitor there is that existing behavior, which is desktop, 19 tabs, a Google Sheet or a Notion. There's something as your anchor tab.
Yeah.
For lots of people it's a Google Sheet, for some it's Excel, for some it's a Notes app. But you've got an anchor tab that you're filling all the information.
You even mentioned Notion for the professional travelers.
For the very serious ones. Or
B2B travel.
Tech people who are going travelling. So you have those competitors, and it's the same. Across the funnel, you've got different ones. I mean, of course, you also now, in the track space, have others that are popping up and trying to replicate that success, which is also very flattering. So across the funnel, you haven't got a competitor, but you have individual competitors. However, it's not impossible that tomorrow a very well-funded company could appear and try and do exactly what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So I'm very aware that we haven't got time to waste here. That if we are going to succeed and we're going to be the one with hundreds of millions of monthly active users, we're going to be the one that everybody goes to the minute you think about the journey right through to the whole rest of your life.
It's a top-of-mind thing, yeah.
We have to get there soon. So even though right now there's no one I'm looking over my shoulder being like, oh my gosh, they're catching us, that doesn't mean, number one, they couldn't. And it also doesn't mean that we will definitely win, because we've still got to execute really well. So that is a reason that we are speeding everything up. It's also a reason that the fact that last year was a very good, profitable year for us was really good, because it means we can now invest very heavily in growth.
Yeah.
It means we can really go hard at these other markets and start to be known. I mean, if we can get to the level of adoption you have in the Netherlands and other places, it's an insane level. You just don't see that level of adoption in consumer apps. It's very rare. It's social, it's email. Those are the kinds of apps that you're going to see that level of adoption. And we've proven we can done it in the Netherlands. We've proven now we can get it moving very quickly in another market, which is France. We now have to do that again and again, and then we are in a good trajectory to, you know.
Are there threats for if you're established in the Netherlands, for example? If you in long term, can it also decline?
Of course,
it can.
Of course, it could. If you stop paying attention to your users, if you stop thinking about your users, and you start to make your app too complex, or ask too much of your users, or start to, for example, show them ads, of course you should never take your users for granted. And so for us, there's the risk of someone else doing it, but there's also the risk of us executing poorly. If we don't listen to our users, if we don't think about the trends and what they want going forward, and what other technologies they want it to work with, and all of those things. So yes, of course, you have to. It's not just about competition; it's also about very good execution. Yeah. That's the piece I'm much less worried about, because our founders and our product team and our head of product, Jim, and every person who works at Polarsteps is obsessed with our users and obsessed with the product experience. And that, when I spend time, so we're sitting actually right now in our upstairs bit of the office, and this is where our community and support team sit. And I work with them very often, actually, and I love it. And it's one of my favorite things is to sit there with them, reading user inquiries and replying to them, and reading the reviews on the App Store and replying to them, and those sorts of things, because our team, our community team, are obsessed with our users in a really good way. Like they just have an extraordinary, I'm going to say, dedication to craft. So that is one of our values at Polarsteps, and I see that in how our community and support team answer their customer inquiries every day. Mm-hmm. There is so much dedication to craft, because we all love Polarsteps. We all love it. We want to use it in our lives. We use it when we go traveling, and we want to make it a wonderful experience for users. And so that kind of closeness to users is something that's really important. We need to keep it as we get bigger.
And you said you're sitting with the support team.
Yeah.
Is that something that you do just for onboarding, or is that something that you plan as a CEO to do?
So we did do it on onboarding. Everybody
Yeah, it
spent some time
makes a lot of sense.
which was predated me. It wasn't my idea. It was a wonderful one. I'm in what we call the backup team for support. So some days there will be something. You might be in a press piece, or there might just be a marketing campaign that went better than we expected, and you just have a big spike in the number of user inquiries. And at that point, because we have, we really want to be strict in how quickly we can reply to customers and make sure we support them. Then at that point, the head of the team, so Dominique at the moment, and Dominique, she will send out a message, and she will send a message saying, backup team, we need some help.
Backup team, go!
And people will say, I can do 2 hours, I can do... And for me, I will always try and do it, because it's really important. It's one of those things where, people might say, well, have you got time in the day to be doing this? But it's not about, do I have time to do it? Because it's important. It's important that I listen to users. It's important that, we talked about data and gut instinct.
Yeah.
Look, I'm obsessed with the dashboards. I look at the dashboards. The first thing I do every day is go into our dashboards and look at all our stats and understand what's been happening. And I also speak to the team. But a piece of that data is also something that's harder to explain, which is just reading how the users feel.
Yeah.
Get somewhere in there that will be going in, and that will be part of my data in how we make decisions.
There's just check-in points everywhere.
Yeah.
Because right now, I think if I would plan a journey, I would, like the planning part, I would go to probably ChatGPT and just ask. So that might be an up-and-coming competitor.
Yeah, although the thing there is, it's so generally people, you might start there.
Yeah.
But using
I will never end there.
A lot of people won't end there, partly because it's not specific. A lot of people don't want to be sent to the same places. And if we saw this with influencers and a while ago having a big problem, which is that travel influencers on platforms like Reels and TikTok, they would go to this amazing hidden gem village.
Yeah.
And and with really good intention, they would show off what a wonderful time they had. And then people would descend on that village.
Yeah, just ruin the experience.
And it might be a bad experience for them because it was full of tourists, but it might also be a bad experience for the locals who maybe want a few hundred tourists and not 10,000 tourists, for example. And so that's something we also have to be aware of, which is when we're using an LLM, what rules is it following for that? How is it thinking about the ethics of travel? And how is it thinking about local communities and how they will feel? Is it just scraping a load of data and saying, looks like most people go to the Amalfi Coast, you should go to the Amalfi Coast. Or looks like nobody goes here, you should go here, but it doesn't think about safety or ethics or other things. So I think that's the other thing, is that as users, we want to have a good experience, but we also want to be able to trust that there is some human stuff in there, which is thinking about values. And so that's one of the things we do here, is we have a team of human editors. And these are travel editors who have travelled the world. I mean, between them, they've been to a ridiculous number of countries. And they do a lot of the work on our content about places, because it's important to us. It's not just AI saying, go to this place. It's also got a human lens, and that includes thinking about sustainability and ethics and those sorts of things in there, because we want to make this a good experience for the communities where people are traveling, as well as for the travelers themselves.
Yeah, because earlier, before the cameras started rolling, I asked if when you grow to 100 million users, do you want to just grow the users and also grow the team? Of course, technology is scalable, but if you are representing 100 million monthly active travelers, then this is the stuff that is new, I think, in the growth process.
Yeah, so we're still going to work out what the perfect size is going to be for us. Yeah. But my hope is it's going to be less than 500 people long term. Because this, at the moment, it is so efficient, and it is a team of people who work together so beautifully. Like, it's really extraordinary. I haven't had to do, I think, a single bit of working with people on why departments have upset each other. Yeah. Or stepped on each other's toes or anything here, because it is a really extraordinary team, and the work that's been done on culture is a really important part of that. And I don't want to lose that as you grow. I also don't want us to lose the efficiency. You can be very efficient when you're a small team. Mm-hmm. Once you start adding layers of management, and you suddenly find you've got somebody whose job is to manage 4 people, but their whole job is managing, you start to lose a lot of efficiency. You also end up with accidental process and loops people have to jump through, and so hoops people have to jump through. So I'm hoping that we can build this with a small team.
Yeah.
And that also allows us to be generous employers and to take care of our people and make them happy and well in a way that is much harder to do at scale. Whereas for us, if we can deliver this multi-billion business with a group of less than 500 people, that would be a really special thing.
That's still a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
We talked a little bit somewhere else where there are like barriers if the team grows, that the communication shifts also.
Yeah.
How many people are you with right now? 40?
70.
70.
Yeah.
And then that's going to grow. I think 500 is going to be a lot of...
Well, so less than
eventually.
500. I mean, at the moment, the plan for this year is
499.
only 100. So hopefully this year will only be 100. I'm just such a big fan of keeping it small. So there will be barriers. The nice thing is, having done a scale-up experience before, I know some of the mistakes we don't going to make again, and also got to steal things from what other people have done. So the lovely thing about my experience at What Three Words was that I worked with some amazing people, and they had really brilliant solves for a lot of this. And they might be people who came in from bigger companies or had done other types of scale-ups, and so a lot of that I've seen. And but also we got stuff wrong. There was stuff that I would have liked to have done better myself. And a big thing of that is over-communication, because people will want different things. So some people will want very, very deep transparency, and some people just want the high level. But you can communicate in ways that gives them that. So you can do things with, so I share posts on our general channel about all sorts of things. When we make a decision, when something's gone well, something hasn't gone well, just an update, and you can have a too long don't read at the top of it. And if you are the person that just wants the headlines, read the headlines, maybe put an emoji, you're done. If you're the person that wants the deep dive, so the other day I did it with a strategic question. It was actually all about why we're upping our spend on ads. So we're having not done much marketing, we're suddenly spending some money on marketing, and I wanted the team to know why. And of course, you can wait and once a month do it in your company update, but I think it's also important to give real-time information. So I shared a Slack post with the summary, and then I shared a Notion page with the detail. And the Notion page has loads of detail, and people commented on it and asked questions, and that was wonderful. And that means you're serving both those audiences. You're not just saying, well, we should only do high level, because some people only want high level. You're saying, if you want high level, here's high level. If you want detail, here's detail. And that is a balance that I've had to learn, because my instinct is actually to over-communicate. And then people say, there's too much information. So what I'm trying to work out now as we go through this is getting that right, which is, if you just want the headlines here, if you want the detail, go here.
And does it only apply for example, if you're with 70 people, or like at what point of the company should you worry about this as a leader?
I think you should worry about it all the time. Communication all
From
the
the
time.
start,
For me, you basically have your strategy, and then your communication internally is going to decide if that strategy happens or not. Because you want people to understand why they're doing it, because when people understand why they're doing it, they're excited about it. Yeah. And when they feel like their work is seen and valued and understood, and also if they have a space to give feedback back. So the thing I did last year, which really helped us shape the strategy for this year, is I sent out just a Google form with just a few questions about strategy. And I said, anybody in the company, please fill this in. And it was amazing, because people filled it in with ideas, things we might have missed, ideas for monetization, like all kinds of things came out of that. And that was a part of our decision making on strategy for this year. Yeah. And it went into how we thought about our company goals. So that's the other important part of this, is it's not just communication out, it's also communication back. Seek it. Go and seek people to tell you things that they are thinking, because everybody will have a different perspective in the organization. Different teams, different backgrounds, different experiences, they will all have different perspectives. And if you don't seek those out, you'll miss them. Yeah.
And I also heard that at What Three Words, if you're with a team that's 10 people, then you can sit around the table. That's what you mentioned. Yes. You can basically hear what everyone's working on. Yeah. How do you do that now? Is it just Slack? Because of course, you want the team to be up to date with what you're doing, but you also want to make sure that they're up to date with what they're what each other is doing.
So it's a combination. So it's Slack and it's Notion a lot, and that's partly because asynchronous communication, so in writing, lets people work on different time zones. It lets people have different stuff. So there might be somebody who needs to be in the office very intensely in the middle of the day, but then needs to leave to collect their kids, for example. I don't want them to miss the information because it had to happen at 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. Yeah. So an important thing about asynchronous comms, so written stuff, is it helps loop people in, it helps people be flexible, which is really good. It also, you have to think carefully when you write something. When you say something, you don't necessarily have to think about it. When you write it, you reread it, you edit it. So lots and lots of written. And it's one of those things where people often say, and I saw this, What Three Words, there are so many Slack channels, but basically you should have an infinite number of Slack channels. You should just get really good at managing them. So Slack channels are great because you can mute them. So you can say, I will subscribe to the press channel and I will read all the press updates once a month. Once a month I can go in there and skim them and read them. It allows you to, so infinite Slack channels allows people to decide, how interested am I in this? And if you have loads of channels and they're public, people can go, you know, I really care about the research insights. So we have an amazing user research team. And they post their insights. Whenever they do a study, they post their insights in Slack. Now, lots of people may not ever look at that, but the channel is there and it's open. and you can look at it if you want. So I have it unmuted, so I get a notification every time, and I love reading it. Others might mute it and look at it once a month or once a week.
Yeah. So it's more about the availability of the information.
Yes, so make sure, so written information should be there and available, and anybody who's interested can look for it, and structured so that people can find it. Then you have in person, and that is both broadcasting, which is, for example, we have a monthly update where all of us are together and we sit together and we do updates from
at
each
5
team.
p.m.
Not at 5 p.m. Definitely not at 10 a.m. So everybody gets to hear what's going on. We also do a lot of socials, which is a really important part of communication because you hear from people. But one of my favourite things, which was not invented by me and pre-existed me here, which I love, is demo day every other Thursday. And this is where the team sit... I think it's every other Thursday. I have to check my diary. It just appears in my diary. It's every other Thursday, I think. Basically what happens is the team all come together and we have snacks and drinks. And this is also not at 5 p.m. it's a late afternoon. And we sit together and the teams demo stuff they've been building. And it is very low-key, but you see maybe an engineer who's been building a great fix or a feature or something, and they demo it. And you get to see it somewhere along its journey before it gets shown to the users or shipped. And that is a real joy because you get to see what everyone's doing, but also the people who are doing the building get to present it. And that's really important because I think so often, especially as the company gets bigger, your work can get hidden.
Yeah.
And you can often find that...
overshadowed.
It can get overshadowed. And also, like right now, I get to talk to you and I am showing off the work of 70 other people. So little of what I'm talking about is my work. And yet I get to be the one who sits here with you and gets to see your joy about using Polarsteps and gets to talk on a stage and have everyone afterwards and be like, I'm obsessed with Polarsteps, it's amazing, look at my Polarsteps. Now, everybody else in the company does that work. Yeah. And so I think the lovely thing about the demo is they get to show that work themselves. I'm also a big fan of the company going out and telling people and being on stages themselves as well because they get that feedback. But it's a really important thing that you don't take for granted how important it is for people to show their own work and for their work to be valued.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I think this communication stuff is very interesting, right? Because if you're whether you're building a small team or a large team, as soon as you have to work with people, you have to be aware of this. And then especially your experience here, yeah, just an overview of how it works is very interesting. I would love to talk a little bit about what your view is on what is a good CEO and what is a bad CEO, and what is the responsibility of a CEO. Because I think moving from chief commercial officer to a chief executive officer is quite the shift.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, this is an ongoing lesson for me. So
yeah, you're learning.
I'm hoping I will have learned a lot more about what makes a good CEO in the next 10 years. And for now, it's also hard to know because you don't have a counterfactual, right? I don't get to A/B test being CEO. I can't be like run a simulation of me and everything I do here and see the impact.
I say this stuff here and I say this stuff there and let's see what happens.
Yeah, and much as I would love that because I love data and I would love to do an A/B test, you kind of have to muddle along and do the things you think are right and listen when someone says that they were wrong and try and improve. And that involves, lots of tweaking. It also does involve, I spend a lot of time talking to other CEOs and learning from people, and people are very generous in helping me. And I read every book I can possibly find.
Also on leadership and
on leadership and business and not just business, but I basically read every book I can find on anything. I think you can learn from fiction as much as you can learn from business books.
Quite a lot of books out there.
Yeah, and there are lots of books out there. So desperately trying to collect as much data as possible so that I make as few mistakes that I could have avoided as possible. But yeah, I guess at Polarsteps, the stuff that is feeling good at the moment is being really close to the team and having good two-way communication so that the team talk back to me and tell me things, and that feels good. So I'm hoping that's part of being a good CEO. I would say part of it that I'm hoping is good, because it's my personality, is to be interested in everybody and what they're doing. Because you're building an organization of humans, and being interested in them in humans and wanting to work with them and wanting to know what they care about and what they love
can never matters.
be bad. I think so, right? So I think being interested in the people, wanting to hear from them, wanting to spend lots of time with them and listen to them. And then I think clarity and transparency. So this is a thing I'm trying to do, and so far the team are giving very good feedback on it, which is if you make a decision, just tell us why. And tell us how you made that decision and how we can input next time. And I think I'm trying to do that, and I'm sure I can do more of it. But it's one of those things where in this new role I wasn't, because the company exists and the culture already existed, and it was fantastic. So I wasn't coming in to fix anything.
No.
It's already...
It's not your new project or something.
I mean, this is probably one of the best places to work in the Netherlands, and probably one of the most successful. If you look at it's where it's been and where it's going, it's incredibly successful as a company, and it's a wonderful place to work. So I wasn't coming in to change things, but a thing that has been good as we go, because it is a growth phase and it's a change phase, is just to constantly communicate just everything. When we talk to investors, I communicate that back to the team. I tell them if we're thinking about fundraising, or why we might not fundraise, what we would like in an investor, what we wouldn't like, and just keeping everybody involved in the journey.
But you want to prevent you talking with an investor and the team not knowing, right? Because then there will be like, oh wait, why are we talking with investors? I thought we had a good year last year.
Exactly.
Stuff
So
like that.
it's always like this company is the people in it, and so they should know as much as you can tell them. Basically, I want everyone to know as much as possible, and there's nothing that's off limits. If I know it, I would like the team to know it if they want to know it, because they also, in a startup and a scale-up, you're investing so much in building something. If it works, it will work because of those people who put their lives, so much of their lives into this.
So you wanted enthusiasm. That's
but also I want them to trust it and to know when it's going well and know what's not going well, because I know that. And I know this, my experience was, I loved that once you got to a certain level of seniority, you just were allowed so much information, you were allowed data on everything. Like, you would know everything, and people would tell you things, and you'd learn things, and then you would make great decisions. And I want everybody to have that all of us should have as much information as we want and is useful to us, so that we can make good decisions. And that means you don't have to micromanage, because there is so little micromanagement here, because, well, number one, because the hiring is amazing. So if you get brilliant people, you really don't need to micromanage them. But also, if we give people enough information and context, they will make great decisions. But that is our job as senior leaders, is to make sure we're giving context. And I learned this, so Jo, who I mentioned earlier in the podcast, she had that as a mantra for me for a long time in the scale-up phase, and at What 3 Words, she would say, give context. Give context, give context, give context. Don't just make decisions, and don't just communicate decisions and what needs to happen. Give context. And that's something I've really taken with me, and I hope... So yeah, what makes a good CEO? I hope some combination of transparency, communication, caring about the communication, caring about the individuals that are there, and then just openness to learning and listening, I hope.
Yeah, that's great. I think you share this also with your work in the NGOs from what we learned earlier. Can you tell a little bit about that and how that maybe taught you stuff that you're using in a CEO role, or at least in a leadership role?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of similarities, right, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so people who work in NGOs generally are extraordinarily passionate and full of kind of, even in really difficult circumstances a lot, they want to create change in the world. And so that was a really good learning experience for me, because I think you can also have that in private companies and in public companies, in companies where if you can help people believe in what they're building. And part of that is because we're building a beautiful product that people want to use. And part of that is because travel itself is a thing that I so strongly believe we need in the world to create connection and to help us reach across cultures. And to stay sane. And also just my experience of travel has been that people are wonderful. That's been my experience of travel. And it's been most people's experience of travel that I know. And that is a lesson that I think we need now more than ever in this world.
Yeah, I think once we all stop traveling, then...
So I think there's something here as well, which is that the people at Polarsteps are kind, empathetic people, and they also care about how we build the product. So they're also people who care about, well, how can we make sure that we show off train journeys on the platform instead of plane journeys? How do we show that someone did a really low carbon trip all the way across Europe into Asia? How do we show that off? How do we help inspire people? How do we build the AI itinerary planner with these things in mind? Like that kind of ethical thinking, and let's care about our impact in the world, and let's not always optimize just because this is the most financially sensible thing. Let's also think about ethics and how the company exists in the world. Yeah. And that has been a thing I think that I've seen in NGO world, but it's lovely to see that you can also see this in this other world. Yeah,
so volunteers in NGO world were passionate and they wanted to improve the world. And they did their part.
Yes.
And they understood in what context they were working and what problems they were tackling, and then employees or team members, they want to do the same.
Yeah. And also just that caring about what you do and wanting to have an impact can carry you a very long way in a startup or a scale-up, because sometimes it will be exhausting and sometimes it will be a big old roller coaster and stuff will go wrong, and having that vision and believing on the way. And it's also why, so I still am very involved in a bunch of different NGO things, and one of those is I work with an organisation called Refugees at Home. So at the moment I still have a place in London, and they, for many years, I've been hosting emergency hosts for refugees. So Refugees at Home do long-term placements and short-term placements, and they let people, so basically what happens is somebody stays with you when they have a problem with accommodation. Sometimes they're coming from being street homeless. So I've had people where staying with me is the first night they've slept indoors for a while.
Wow.
And it is something that I think is really important to do when you're doing startup life, is to also have other things going on. Because tech startups and scale-ups feel all-consuming at times. And one of the things I love about doing Refugees at Home is, so I started it when I was at 3 Words and have carried it on now. So I spend a lot of my Mondays and Fridays in London, so I can check someone in. And it's a really important thing to shut your laptop and then go and sit with somebody who has a refugee who's maybe come from on a very long journey to get there, and share a meal together and not think my job is the most important thing in the world, and think there are lots of other things. And that's the thing that I think is also worth, just when you're doing startup life or any of these things, is just remember that other things matter and find ways to expose yourself to them, because it will give you very good perspective.
Yeah, just to understand that they're also people, and then, for example, if you share a meal with them, then that's priceless to them, right? Yeah.
Also to you. I mean, this is the same thing with travel. Like, for me, so much of the joy I get in travel is meeting people and hearing about cultures and their history and their life. And I get exactly that when someone shows up in my flat in London and they've come from Afghanistan, for example, and we talk and I learn from them. And sometimes I had someone and he didn't speak any English, so we talked via Google Translate.
Yeah.
So I was translating from English to Farsi and he was doing Farsi to English. And we were sitting there eating together, texting with this translate. And that was a priceless experience for me.
Yeah.
I got so much out of that. And just like in travel world, these experiences are so much of what living is about. And it's really important that work doesn't become the only thing, and that you just also get to live.
Yeah. Well, then I think you're in the right place.
Yes.
Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the lovely thing here is, of course, because it's full of travellers and adventurers, the culture is designed around it. So it's designed with lots of remote work. So people can, we've got someone who, at last call with him, he was in Panama. And I was looking at him in Panama while we were chatting. So we've got that, but also we have this, I think people do know about it in the Netherlands, we have this teleporter, which is where once a year on the anniversary of when you joined, you get to spin the teleporter and it will land somewhere one of our users have been, and we will cover your ticket there.
Yeah, wow.
And so, it's built in here. This travel is not just holidays. That's not what travel is. We're talking about adventure and discovery and curiosity. And that's actually something the founders, one of my first jobs with the founders was work through with them a manifesto they'd been writing about the soul of Polarsteps. What is adventure? What's true adventure? What does that look like? And what do we want to help our users find when they're traveling?
Yeah, it's multi-destination and
it's curiosity, and it's treading lightly and all of those things. And it's thinking about that stuff and not thinking just because we're now everything's going crazy on the user numbers and the revenue's going really well and all the rest of it. It's also important to know what the soul of this company was. And the manifesto is this kind of living doc, and I look at it all the time. It's really special. Like, it's a thing that I feel is very rooting when you're making decisions, to have that there and the team talk about it and we reference it in decisions, and I think it's a really positive thing.
Wow. Yeah, before we started during the coffee, I asked about vacation days, but then I quickly realized that you're not working with people that take vacation, but you work with travelers, right? So they combine work with travel. Even on the way here, we got stuck in traffic. I had to call someone that's working from a van in Spain, I think, Portugal.
I mean, she might be in Spain or Portugal right now.
Yeah, we never know. Oh, we can.
We can look on Polarsteps. Yeah, we'll be able to see her. Exactly this. So this is, and I love it. In the summer last year, I did a few times. I would do 4 or 5 days of travel and then 3 days of work, and then go back traveling and work. And you would be working in different places, and it was really, and it makes me better at my job.
Well, thank you very much for all your insights and in this chat. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And I hope the people at home also enjoyed it. If you did, make sure that if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like. If you have questions, you can always comment them. We can answer them, or maybe on a future episode with other entrepreneurs, we can discuss the challenges that you have. If you're listening in the podcast app, then make sure to give us a follow or a review. Then we have some interaction going, and then we know that we're doing, I don't know, we're having actually meaningful conversations that help people. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.